What's going on, everyone? My name is Terminus, and today we are gonna react to Shingeki no Kyojin, the final episode or the final kind of movie. Yeah, I do assume that there's a lot of new people coming in here. Probably. Let me just adjust the camera a bit. This is how we do it here. I'm not at it for a long time yet. I'm still figuring things out. But yeah, I do assume that we're getting a lot of new viewers. So let me just put out some disclaimers here and there. If you do enjoy my content, I would really love to have you subscribe later on to see if you like any of my other videos. I'm currently doing Frieren. I'm a little bit behind, but we're slowly catching up. And I'm also doing Made in Abyss, which is a super fascinating thing for me. I generally try to analyze stuff from a narrative perspective, but also kind of a little bit go into the psychological thing. I'm a psych student. So I do have some know-how that I can apply here, but I don't want to go too deep, of course, because it's probably like I probably lose some people there, just because going into the very nitty-gritty details and always citing studies and whatnot is not everybody's cup of tea. So I'm trying to keep it not surface level, but right, just somewhere in the middle between surface level and deep. And we're just trying to analyze what do the characters in the various series that we watch, what do they feel, what do they go through, what's some of the main themes that are going on, what might have been the author's intention here, and what can we ourselves maybe subjectively extrapolate beyond what the author is saying. And then we do also sometimes look at animation and stuff. I don't know if we're going to do this in this specific case. If I see anything that's really, really exciting, I'm probably going to do it. But this is Mappa, and I haven't anything prepared. So I might actually, after watching the movie, I might go in and look at Sakugaburo, and we look at specific animation sequences if there's something that stood out to me. I don't like Mappa's animation that much, mainly because they heavily use CG. I don't hate it. I thoroughly enjoyed the previous Attack on Titan content. If you're looking for it on my channel, unfortunately, that's not going to be a thing, because I've watched all of Attack on Titan, and I've also, big disclaimers, read the manga, so I do know how it ends. If you're looking for somebody who's blindly reacting to it and absolutely surprised by everything, that's not what you're gonna get here, unfortunately. I mean, I'm still gonna feel something in the moments, right? Like I watched the Attack on Titan, like the first part of the final part, basically. By the way, great naming scheme. Great job, everybody. Everybody calls it something different. Yeah, I watched the first movie OVA kind of thing that was supposed to be the end, and Hanji's end also just fucking destroyed me on an emotional level. That was, especially with Bauklötze playing in the background, being a really, really good and fitting song, I would say, for that. And then the send off where she's just being welcomed by her fallen comrades. That was, and the reaction of Armin and whatever. But yeah, it's still gonna get me emotionally. But obviously, I know what's coming, and generally, it will be very interesting to see if there's any changes. I don't think there will be major changes. I was kind of hoping for an anime-only ending, but seems we're gonna go the straight route, and we're just gonna do it the way it was in the manga, and that is okay in my opinion. It has its good points, it has its bad points. We can talk about it later, but yeah. What do we expect? Well, we are at the precipice. We are at the final clash, right? We led right into the unlikely alliance of allies of the warrior unit, and our people from Paradise actually making their landing on Eren, on the giant monstrosity that has become Eren, more or less. Or Eren Ymir kind of like merged together. And it's the world versus Eren, right? How did it come to this? That's the big question, right? How did it come to this? What is the mentality that we go in here? that justifies, well, not justifies, it's not gonna justify, but that explains to us why it's gotten to this point in the first place. And I would say that one of the main things going in is probably, holy shit, I actually didn't. I apologize. Okay, so this will probably be the first thing that's gonna get cut. That's gonna land on the cutting floor, kind of low-key. But yeah, I do hope that the mic quality is gonna be a little bit better now, and that you can hear it a little bit better. I'm pretty sure I can just up the gain, and we're gonna be fine. But anyway. And yeah, the root of things is Eren's suffering in this case. I mean, obviously he is at this point the villain of the story, but every villain has their story, especially if we're gonna get somewhat grounded, right? If we're gonna get somewhere close to what we wanna call realistic or maybe plausible. Let's say plausible from psychological, from a mental standpoint, and obviously, we don't want to repeat everything that happened so far. Most of you have seen all of the stuff that happened before, how the messages got back into the past from future Eren, how he has seen his future through his father's memories, through Eren's memories, the whole shenanigans, the whole kerfuffle, and but what that basically puts us at is that Eren is under the impression, in my personal opinion, and we saw that very vividly in the first movie, Eren is under the impression that he does not have a choice in what he's doing, that everything that he does ultimately leads to the same end, which is the rumbling in this case. And that has a couple of reasons. I don't think it's as simple as him. Well, I don't think it's as simple as it just being predetermined by fate and that's it. I do think that there's a couple of things we can go into. The first of all, though, how cruel is it? How much of a fucking sadist is Isayama to write his main character with the main, like the his most basic, his most emotional, his most important desire in the entire world being freedom, because he's been caged in his entire life, and he's grasping for that freedom throughout that, and he's becoming the person he wants to become, because he's a person of like he's a person of action, right? His personality from the get-go has been very very combative, very I do fight for the things that I hold dear. I do stand up for them. And how cruel is it to have that character, give them the motivation, the core motivation to desire freedom above all else, to desire to be free and live their life the way they want to live, and then put them under the impression, at least, or I mean, it might be actually true, but put them at least under the impression that everything they do is predetermined and there's nothing they can do to change it. And that is, in my opinion, incredibly, incredibly sad and cruel to do that. I can't even imagine to be in that situation, to stand at that place. I mean, there's more to it, like I said. We do have that basic belief, that desire, but Eren, throughout his time, whenever he started to see the future, has been trying to constantly disprove that the things that he saw will actually happen. He has been trying to change his behavior. He's been trying to pay attention to these key moments and try to see, what is there any way the pivotal moments of my life can happen differently, right? And maybe you might want to say, okay, he should have started with the little things, right? Just insignificant moments in which he could have said things differently than what he normally would have done, stuff that he might not even have remembered, right? And just say things that are a little bit out of character for him, or they're a little bit with a different connotation or whatever. And that might have been the way out, right? That might have been the way to kind of nudge that butterfly effect. Well, not butterfly effect, because we're not actually changing an already established feature, and we're not dealing with timelines the way that traditional time travel anime are, but that would have maybe kind of nudged threaded the needle and then nudged him into another direction. But what he did is pay attention to the big moments. His confrontation with Mikasa, where he asks her what is he to her, right? His that moment where he tries to save how was his name? I think Ramsey or somebody like the little migrant kid, where he's like, okay, actually he's gonna die anyway, so I'm just gonna let him be. But his nature, his very nature, it's not even that he's compelled by some force to do it, but he knows that the decisions he made and the moments he made them, even with additional information of what's to come after, he's gonna make them anyway, because this is his personality. This is the only way he sees going forward. We do have this big question in the air about are we really free in a way, right? And what does that freedom mean to us? Even if we are free to choose the way we choose, would we do the things differently that we did in our lives? Would we make different decisions at the pivotal moments in our lives? And I do believe that, yeah, for some maybe, but for the most part, I do believe even if we have additional information later, as long as it's nothing where the additional information that comes in later gives us new opportunities and shows us new ways that we hadn't thought about before, in that case, obviously, it's possible that we would make different decisions. But if we have all of the possibilities in front of us, and we had them in front of us the first time we made the decision as well, but we chose that one possibility that is the only thing that we somehow were able to accept. And I think that is what Eren's case is, right? This is the situation he is in. Most of his most pivotal decisions were made when he had at least enough information to consider most of the possibilities that are here. And we are also talking about Armin's choice as well, to just talk to people and try to figure out somewhat insecure but at the same time hopeful peace. But Eren is not the character to believe in that hope. Eren's not a character to leave it up to fate if his friends are gonna be happy or if they're gonna have to fight another war. So the question here becomes, what does Eren think is plausible, and what does Eren accept as a possibility? And I do think that that somewhere along the lines he lost the hope that Armin's choice of talking to people and trying to make peace is a viable option. And I do think one of those instances was, for example, in court when he saw all these people going from hating on the Eldians to protecting them, but excluding the island and making them the devil, because Eren kind of saw that for people to unite, it often needs a villain or some kind of enemy, not even an enemy that might be necessarily evil, but just an enemy that people consider to be a threat and evil, for them to kind of get together and find peace amongst each other. And he wasn't willing to accept that, to take the blame of the entire world, obviously, also with his entire history and all the memories he saw from his predecessors. I do think just Eren suffered too much. He went, I mean, you see that often in people who go through a lot of suffering through their lives, that you end at a point where you cannot believe that the future you are treading into, that it can be positive, or that people that all have hurt you your entire life could in any way be trusted to not hurt you in the future. There's this whole thing about protecting yourself or protecting your own, and kind of huddling in to prevent any additional damage at the detriment of yourself. Because if you're not going out there, if you're not doing anything with your life, if you're not meeting new people, obviously you don't have the chance to make additional positive experiences. Right? You avoid negative experiences and pain at all costs, but at the detriment of making positive experience and healing that pain that you had in the past. And I think Eren just suffered too much. He has seen too much suffering through all these memories he has seen. He hasn't seen like a lifetime of memories. He has seen countless lifetimes of memories where his people were hurt. They were oppressed. They were destroyed, right? And maybe also they did the destroying in favor to a higher master. We have seen the whole history of the Eldian tribe, how Ymir was in the end just somebody who a slave who obeyed a master who was cruel and power hungry and absolutely disgusting, right? The old King Fritz. Yeah, horrible things he made even his daughters do, eating their mother's spine and all of that. I don't know how they got the idea. I mean, there's a little bit of like narrative. You gotta suspend your disbelief in some of the minor elements of the story, but this is a story of oppression and aggression and violence begetting violence, hate begetting hate. And you fan the flames for thousands of years, and at some point it's gonna come to a blow, and bad things are gonna happen. Yeah. But to come back to all of this, I think Eren just doesn't have the capacity to believe and hope anymore, and that is a very, very sad thing. Because if we lose the capacity to hope, what is left, right? We don't have the chance to even get to try to solve things peacefully and go into a bright future. But Eren made his decision, and I do think that it doesn't matter how many times he would technically be able to redo it. We can talk about if he would be able to redo it. That's another thing. That's a narrative meta kind of thing. Depends how Isayama made that, created that kind of timeline and universe. But at the same time, does it even matter? Because the theme is the same. Eren would make the same decisions because he is the same person. He has the same personality. He has the same experiences because, unfortunately, through his paths and the memories that he has been receiving from his ancestors and from his future self through various means, he ultimately made all of these experiences and has all that knowledge, even the first run, or the second, if you want to call it that, the run that we followed on the main show. And I do think that more than anything, I do think that the things we humans regret the most in our lives are the decisions we didn't make, right? It's not the decisions we made, because you make a decision and maybe it's successful or maybe it's a failure, and you say, well, I could have done ththings differently. I have additional information now. There's this path that I didn't see. Eren has considered most of these paths, I think, and he has considered all of them wanting, even the one that he chose. But the one that he chose was, for him at least, the least evil. He wanted to protect his friends. And all means necessary. He wanted to avoid any harm that's coming to his friends, not only on a physical basis, not only on them having to fight a war, but also on Historia, for example, having to bow to this barbaric tradition of just getting eaten by your children and passing on the power and whatever, and having this unstable peace. And it's just the decision he made. But I do think also an interesting point is, and that is my personal opinion, that the things we regret the most are probably the places and the decisions where we actually, or the not decisions, right? The moments where we didn't make any decisions in the first place, where we stood still and were unable to decide between one or the other. And then the chance passed by, and all the circumstances around us kind of just made the decision for us. And Eren is a steadfast character in this regard. He is obviously he had to delude himself a lot. At this point, he's very, very much caught himself in a dream world, because he can't deal with the mental drama. He can't deal with the things he himself is doing. I do think that there's a limited capacity for human beings to tolerate even the things we personally do, right? The circumstances we're in, and at some point we're gonna flee ourselves in delusions and in daydreams and just shoving away all the things that we are experiencing, just deluding ourselves into believing that something else is happening or not looking at it. We're very good at that, not looking at the things that are unpleasant to us, and just locking in those unpleasant memories of our past. And in a way, Eren is child Eren again, right? He fulfilled his dream of freedom. He is above the clouds, and he doesn't see what's beneath the clouds. The cloud, the real red clouds of terror, the heat, the burning flesh, the blood on his hands. But in a way, he realizes, right, subconsciously, there is some part of him that realizes that. And he put himself into the situation where he was like, okay, I'm either gonna save my friends by doing something very horrible, and either having to live with it for the rest of my life, or maybe dying in the process, or I'm gonna get stopped, but at least I tried my best. And I think he has the possibility in his mind that he could get stopped by his friends, because by all means necessary, he does not want to restrict the freedom of his friends, which makes perfect sense to me. A character that is so focused on freedom, that is, the freedom is the highest value for him in the entire world. He would never dare to take the freedom away from the people that he holds the most dear. He doesn't want to do that. So if they want to come and stop him, he can't stop them. He would be sad to see it, but at the same time, it's their decision, so he's gonna respect it. And I have to respect that as a person. I do think that's a very noble philosophy with all the bad stuff he's been doing, with all the atrocities he's been committing. There is some good core inside of him that just got lost, and he's given up hope. And if you give up hope, your values change as well. Maybe not your core values, right? Caring about your friends, whatever, but certain things get blurry. And we have gotten to a situation where this is impossible to solve with him being still alive, especially already with all the stuff that he's been doing. So the question is, how is it going to end, right? How is it going to end? And it's Eren versus the world, and Eren versus his friends in a way. But I do, like, something tells me that deep down, Eren doesn't mind to get defeated by his friends, right? That would be okay for him to do. At the same time, I don't think he's gonna stop. So there is this kind of incongruency, that disconnect, that if worst comes to worst, he might be killing his friends, right? He might be killing his friends because he's fighting against them in this way, right? Because they stand in the way of his goal. And how does he deal with that on a cognitive level, right? How does he deal with that? Is that for him they killed themselves? Does he delude himself in that way? Or does he look at the facts and accept that they're happening? But yeah, a last little topic I really like. Armin and Annie. I've been following the series since its inception. Well, not entirely its inception, club. I think that, like, I started watching this show 2 or 3 years after the first season aired, and I've been on and off from it, but I've been rewatching it 1 or 2 times in the process, because it's been such a long time since the series started. It's been an entire 10 years. Think about that. It's really the end of an era, kind of. But yeah, Annie and Armin. I've seen it in the first season, literally. And I know, like, a couple of people who shipped Annie and Armin in the first season already, but then they were like, oh, damn, Annie's, like, one of the bad guys. Now it's not gonna happen. But especially when she was, like, in the crystal and whatever. But I've seen it. Like, there was this unspoken chemistry, and they did a very good job in the anime, in the show, to actually display that there was some connection, that Armin was interested in Annie from the first moment on. We see that in the confrontation when Armin and Annie when Armin confronts Annie about her real identity, because he figured it out, of course, and tests her, and she's kind of apprehensive of wanting to hurt Armin, and we do have the dialogue, which heavily implies that the two of them really not like each other in that way yet, but at least like each other in the way that that they are really interested in each other, and that's really interesting because they're kind of polar opposites. Armin is very calm and strategic and very peaceful, very pacifistic in his approach, and Annie is very aggressive. We see that in the later seasons when the thing about the Warriors gets revealed and Annie is just beating Reiner because of her frustrations. She's very aggressive. She had a very hard life growing up. She's very resentful. She's very stoic as well, doesn't talk much in many instances. But, I mean, you know how it is. Sometimes opposites attract each other. And that is, like, maybe they see in each other the things that they wish they would have, or, the things that they desire to have, or they can see the possibility of meeting in the middle somewhere and finding a calm and quiet life. And I do like the fact that we pulled through with that. It's a little bit weird with, like, the 4-year gap where literally nothing happens, but we do have Armin constantly talking to her. It's kind of a one-sided thing in that regard, but since Annie is a very quiet character to begin with, who doesn't say a lot in general, there I would assume that this is kind of mitigated a little bit, because it's very interesting. Armin understands people very quickly. I think not understanding Eren's intentions was one of his big lapses of judgment, but it's because Eren is so very close to him that it's very hard to see the actual truth, that it's very hard to see that it's very hard to see when your friend is going down a path that you don't like. But I'm very eager to see how this is gonna pan out and how the anime is gonna show it and all of that. But that's about it. Generally, how we do things here is I'm gonna make a cut. Then we're gonna start the reaction. It's 1.5 hours on a movie, so it's gonna be pretty long. There's gonna be spaces in between where I don't say anything. So generally, picture is in the description down below. Probably Pixeldrain, probably Mega or BitChute. You're gonna have your options. You're gonna try to maybe have to copy the links because because YouTube is weird, and if you haven't reached certain numbers and whatever, your links are not gonna show up in the descriptions. Just gonna make it even harder for small creators, but whatever. It's them rules. Other than that, I'm probably gonna make a pause or two within the movie where I'm just gonna refresh a little bit, but I'm gonna cut it out, obviously. And after that, we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna go into the nitty-gritty a little bit. Maybe we're gonna look at animation, different characters and their motivations. We're not gonna be exhaustive with that, okay? It's probably would be like a 5-hour reaction if we would be exhaustive with it. Maybe I'll make a post kind of thing where I'm talking about it a little more, and if people really want to see it, I just put out my thoughts on multiple things here, and yeah. But other than that, which is a sentence I think I've said like 20 times in the last minute, but anyway, we're gonna cut, and then the reaction's gonna start. I hope you guys have fun. Alright, we are ready to go, I would say. Shingeki no Kyojin, the final piece of content, is gonna start in 3, 2, 1, go! And we have a little recap here. The Alliance is coming in through the storm. Holy shit, we're gonna start great. On Yankopon. He's gonna make it. I mean, we know that, but it's great to see. The baseball boy. Molly's #1 pitcher. Determination, Armin. It takes a lot of courage to fight your enemies. It takes a lot more courage to stand up to your friends. I remember that from Harry Potter. That was one of the big moments of the first movie. Oh, different song, okay. Nice animation so far. Alright, let's fucking go. Even Connie's gotta make it. And Rhino with the long Hail Mary. I mean, it's a spectacle, always. It's always a spectacle, I love it. Reminds me of the times when I was still watching Shonen, and sometimes it's just great to see an amazing sequence. Holy shit, that is inches. Millimeters for you cultured individuals. Alright, how do we start this? The Battle of Heaven and Earth. What a title. Livestock. The symbolism. Oh, did she... Was that even... Okay, did she take pity on the livestock? Will he do it on purpose? Come to this. Armin always had a tendency to self-sacrifice. I mean, he's not necessarily gonna die, but... Yeah. You do share that philosophy with Eren, at least. And with Irvin. Hold up, Ayo. Oh, I've forgotten so much about this. It's not just Psych. Mr. Leonhard. Oh, was that an Eren Titan? Or was that Frida? That might have been Frida. The ghosts of the past. You're fighting the history of Titans. Think.
それは無理だよ、兵長。
敵の正体が分かった。あれは
歴代の9つの巨人。継承者たちの意識が残っているか分からないけど、始祖の巨人の力があれば、無人像に蘇らせることができるのでしょうね。戦う
The power of the founder.
歴戦の巨人兵を。
そんなもん叶うわけが。
そう。
Impossible odds.
言ってられない。私、別にエレンと友達じゃないから。え？おい、まさか！ビク！あの野郎。
What is she doing? I mean, she's quick. So this is the question. Are the modern Titans better? Get the spine. Oh, she was close. He was so close. A Warhammer, yeah. The Warhammer, maybe. Tiber's Warhammer. Nah, teamwork makes the dream work. Oh, that was close again. Holy shit. Multiple jaws. It's a different thing to see everything in action. It's amazing. This is really... This is some kind of Greek mythology shit where you fight against the Titans. Literally the Titans in this case, but you know. Help them. All hands on deck. No excuses. Oh, I love this score. Just like that. What's it called? I don't even know how it's called. Kind of reminds me of these Imperial marches that are used in some of the big movies. Imposing, right? Epic. It really raises the stakes. Da -da -da. Armin, you're kind of like in a weird situation right now. He convinced her they share a purpose. She's watching, observing. But what is she thinking? What's in her mind? It's very hard to read Ymir, right? It's very hard to read Ymir. Bertolt, holy fuck. And the crying eyes from like back in season 3 where the Titans started crying. Bertolt's Colossal was giant. And she had to witness that. I love that with the stretchy animation. Oh, everybody has their moment here. A moment of almost being defeated. We have to raise the stakes. I mean, obviously Mikasa is... She's insane. Inhuman. Levi's badly hurt. You gotta believe. Or at least keep trying. That's right, Sean. He was always one of the good ones. Holy shit, he grew so much. Think about it. From the crying, complaining rich kid in season 1 up to one of the ultimate heroes of this entire story. One of the most, I don't know, one of the most sympathetic characters, one of my favorite characters at this point. And we do have the season 2 soundtrack playing in the background. I wish I could remember the name. But I remember the lyrics. Oh. Oh, yes. Hell, he said the cavalry is here. Let's go. They fly now? This is what I'm talking about. Air superiority.
いや
Falco.
でも来てよかった
True to his name.
それだ。人を乗せ。
思いに応えなきゃいけないの
カビ。
A warrior through and through.
いや
She also made a turn.
アルミンは巨人に囚われて命が危ないアルミンを捕らえた巨人は尾骨の方にいるはず兄力を貸してあんたの幼馴染は囚われてばかりだねもちろん取り戻すよピークさんは
頭骨の方だ。
Of course, I mean, if Armin is in danger. But even without, I think she would have helped.
バカ
両方どうしたエレンを気に
Holy shit, Levi's holding up on by a threat. This guy can't be kept down. Insane.
兵長でも
でもなんだよアルコが飛ぶなんて奇跡が起きなければ俺たちあそこで死んでただろ
Mikasa, you need to accept it.
何も果たせないまま
ジョン
バカに言ってやりたいことは5万とあったがくそ俺だってエレンを諦めたくねえよでも兵長は俺のせいでもう戦えねえしただでさえ相手は
Look how they're holding on, how they want to believe, but
して何ができるって言うんだよ
they can't hold back. They just need to hope that Eren survives this and that they can talk to him afterwards.
エレンもエレンも殺そう
It's insane how Sean back in the day might have probably not batted an eye, but
あんた
at this
はアルミン
point,
救うことだけを考えな
at this point,
それ以外は考えなくていいから
he cares enough about Eren to have such a terrible grimace and suffer so much at the thought of killing him.
無事に期待するなんて数はこっちが上みたいだ実戦経験もこちらが上だろ
The distrust runs deep.
散々前
Come on, somebody needs to step in. I trust that what he said is true.
なんだこんな時にまで殺し合いかよファルコ飛来物に注意しろ
It's a fake out. I'm pretty sure. Just to be sure, I don't know it, right? Like, I don't know the details. I know the rough details of what happens. I don't know the specifics anymore. It's been too long. The scale of what's happening is amazing.
ああお前らもな潜水の巨人は
I'm thinking back to the season 3 intro where they shoulder clap each other, right? Like the Bertolt and Reiner. It's kind of one of these moments. I have your back, you have mine. I trust that you do your job, and I'll do my job, and we try to stay alive. That is an absolute cool design. Look at that, this guy's a warrior. All the hits. Remix. It's great. That is a season 1 soundtrack as well. When they stand there, everybody's leaving and not joining up for the scouts, and Sean and the rest are staying there and work. Alright, Sean, you can do it. Holy shit. Bro had Sean's haircut. He keeps transforming, holy shit. I do wonder, Sean kind of looks a little bit like Mikasa. I mean, But I don't know. Could have been, maybe. It's a goat? Not goat, but okapi. I don't know what an okapi is, sorry. I'm in the same boat as Ani here.
それで死ぬ巨人はここにはいない。ジークはどこだ？どこにいる？
Is he gonna get his revenge? Is he gonna get his word?
足手まといか。くそ。
His promise to Eren.
奴の命令をしくじったことはなかった。一度。なのに、奴の最後の命令だけがなぜ？
It's almost like it's fate, isn't it?
俺たちの役目はあそこで終わりだったのかもしれない。
Don't say that, Levi.
海に届ける。違う。
The eyes. Holy shit, I love how they drew the eyes.
理想の世界だったはずだ。
A Titan-free world.
あいつらの命と見合わない。エルヴィン、俺はお前を選ばなかったことに悔いはない。お前らと同じ目をしたあいつに未来を託したことに。
And now he's here to save him. Or to help him at least. Follow the goat. That sequence is really cool. Just going through the obstacles. Alright. Teamwork makes the dream work once again. And we go with the spinny spins, right? Yes. Yosha. Ah, damn it. That is some hardening, probably a char. Oh no, an armor. An armor. You still got spirit blades, Mikasa. The thing looks like some kind of Pokemon. Female Titan's versatility. Right, Armin time. What are you thinking? What's going on in your head, man? That's frustrating. Oh, so much to go into here. Self-body image. Self-image. Identity. You can liken that to a lot of stuff too, right? MS or less severe things that are similar. There's a lot of symbolism going on in there, but also just sometimes our body doesn't listen to us. Sometimes we don't work the way we would like to work. And it's frustrating. It's incredibly frustrating, especially if so much is at stake. A calamity. It's interesting how now, of all times, we do see the cultures of the world and the living beings of the world. We didn't see them in most of the series. The focus was mostly on Marley, mostly on Marley and Elia. Now we see it affect so much more than that. And we only have second-hand accounts on how much the aliens are hated throughout the rest of these continents. We don't know. I mean, feared, certainly, but... And we have panic, and we have destruction, we have people dying. So much suffering. Oh, I remember that. The child being passed. Oh. That symbolism is insane. That is an insane piece of symbolism. Your child being passed on. And people, they don't care, they shove each other, but the child is being passed on and everybody helps and... And Armin finds something. Yeah. Are you in the paths? Oh, and it appears. Interesting. So in a way, every alien can influence the paths on some level. Psych! Holy. Look at you. Have you given up? What's going on? Sandcastles. Chapter 4. A Long Dream. Okay, is this our Eren chapter? Or is this our Psych chapter? Oh, we're going creation myth. Cambrian stage? Maybe? We get insight on Ymir. What's your goal? It's hard if she doesn't talk to you, is it? Yeah, what's the reason? I mean, it's hard to get out of the mentality if you never meet anybody, never talk to anybody. He convinced her because they found a point of connection. He's kind of given up. But Armin hasn't. Zeke having an L attitude. But we knew that Zeke was of the opinion that life is suffering. That is an interesting philosophy that, by the way, a lot of philosophers have picked up in the past. Life is pointless for him. And he seeks freedom in death, which... I can't really refute that possibility, right? But it's a very sad one, because once you end it, it's all over. You can't change anything. You don't experience anything anymore. And Armin doesn't want to believe that. Living in the moment. Enjoying the little things. That is incredible. Interesting how it's different for everybody. Reason beyond reproduction. Reason beyond our most basic instinct. Searching for a reason in life. Beyond just being. I mean, obviously being is the most purest form of being alive, but what drives us as humans? I mean, not even we know that, right? As even as psychologists, there's so many things we have to consider. Experiencing warmth, closeness to other people. Is it really all just reproduction, or is it more than that? You know, Reinhardt gets beaten up every fucking time he fights, but you gotta give him one thing. He's gonna stand up over and over. There's no stopping him. But yeah, we are... What? Oh, Bertolt, what are you doing? Bertolt? Oh, it's Bertolt, it's Galliard, it's Ymir. There's some piece of them in there. And Gabby once again, with the pivotal shot, is involved in any or every major event. And there he is. Holy shit. That must have hurt. Reunited at last. And the tide of the battle turns. Oh, is that Eren Kruger? Krisha. Holy shit, Psych. Royal blood. Yeah, I mean, he has more power in here. Bertolt has a stake in this too because Annie's still alive. And maybe his father even, I don't know. I don't remember. Oh no, he passed away, I think. And there he goes. So long, Psych. You were a great character. Levi fulfilled his purpose. Very interesting because... Yeah, did they stop it? Because Psych is dead, right? I mean, he had access to Ymir, so Ymir could maybe continue? Pull the trigger, Sean! Do it! It had to be done. What the fuck are you? I still don't know. On the shoulders of giants, right? Because I feel you. And we dropped the nuke. We do like the dust effects that they're using here. They did it. The memories come flooding in. Her headaches. What is the cause of her headaches? Annie gets her. And Reiner keeps holding on, it's insane.
あの爆発を食らってまだ生きてんのか。ありゃ。
What a monstrosity.
さあな。ただ生かしておくべきじゃないのは確かだ。
It's struggling to survive. It needs a host, I think.
やっぱりな。お前があれで死ぬとは思ってねえからよ。
It's not that easy.
どうすりゃいいんだ。
With the long hair, it's so weird how it hangs down, but
組は終わらねえ。
父さん、最後の仕事が残ってる。
兄さんの分まで俺やり遂げるよ。
なんで
so many lost.
どうしてこうなるの。
And this is Mikasa's moment, right? And Armin's as well. It's more personal, it's a direct confrontation.
足を
Oh, no, 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 it's gonna turn everybody.
ここから離れる。
何を。
If Eren dies, this ends, right? That is a tough sacrifice to make. We know they can't be turned back once they
これ
turn.
が俺たちの最後かよ。まあな。後のことは仲間に託す。それが調査兵団の最後ってやつだからな。覚えてるか、ちゃん。死体を焼いた夜のこと。もう。
Marco.
ったく。お前のせいなんだぞ。兵隊を呼びやがった。
Come on, Reiner. That's right.
本当に地獄が好きなんだな。
Brock Lesnar's gonna stop you. Reiner, now you are what you really wanted to be. A hero. But I don't think that's the way you wanted it to be. And peek with the clutch. The OGs. I can't imagine how much must be going through their head now.
私たちの家に帰りたい。
ミカサ、起きろよ。風邪ひくぞ。
エレン。あれ、私。いつの間に寝てたんだろ
I'm gonna be honest, I remember this, so...
よっぽど疲れてたんだろ
う。何か長い夢を見てた気がする。
今日はもう何もしないでゆっくりしてよぜ。でかい魚も。パラディ島侵略戦争がもうじき始まる。逃げなきゃみんな殺される。アルミンも俺たちを必死で探しているだろう。俺にはヒストリアを地獄に落として永遠の殺し合いをすることも、島の外の人間を大虐殺することもできなかった。それならもうあと4年の余生を静かに生きよう。誰もいないところで2人だけで。そう言ってくれたのはミカサ、お前じゃないか。
うん。ごめんね。この話はしない約束だったのに。
I love how they drew them very simply, like a very basic drawing, but
俺が死んだら
very effective the way it's drawn.
捨ててくれ。お前はこの先も長生きするんだから。俺のことは忘れて自由になってくれ。
Let's talk about this scene later.
ごめん。
She can't forget about him, yes. One last time, Levi, one last time. Holy shit, that reminds me of Season 3. First score. The sequence. You're still here. You're still observing it. Even a smile on her face. Wonder what that means. The tree on the hill. It's very interesting symbolism, tree on the hill.
島の悪魔でありながらパラディ島に背き、人道を貫いた。この世で最も敬意を表される存在になるはずだ。
それじゃあ、巨人大戦後のタイバー家みたいに、壁外人類の報復からパラディ島を守れっていうの。
Did it really have to be this way, though?
残念だけど、僕もみんなも君の思い通りに英雄を演じるつもりはないよ。
信じられなかったけど、始祖ユミルはフリッツ王を愛していた。
But why? I mean,
2000年経ってもユミルを縛り続けていたものの正体だ。始祖ユミルの心の奥深くまで理解することはできない。でも、彼女が苦しんでいたことは確かだ。2000年間ずっと、苦しみから解放してくれる誰かを求め続け、ついに現れた。それがミカサだ。
Not Eren. Mikasa.
ミカサって
言ったよ。やっぱり聞いてなかったか。
聞いてたって。なんでミカサなの？
そりゃ、始祖ユミルにしかわからねえよ。
You can't understand it.
まだ、ミカサが何をするのかわからない。俺が確実に分かった説の仲間を、生き残れるかどうかもわからないまま、戦いに巻き込んだ。
So he's been a puppet all this time.
アルミ、俺は
Incredibly
頭が
sad.
めちゃくちゃになってしまった。
He doesn't know what's the past, what's the future.
過去も未来もない。同時に存在する。だから、
I can't imagine how it is to feel of that at the same time.
あの時、ベルトルトはまだ死ぬべきじゃなかった。
He didn't kill Bertolt.
見逃して、朝に向かわせたの。
He caused his own destiny. That's kind of the part I disagree with.
どう思ってたのさ。
何が？
I think Eren needs a good thrashing, not gonna lie.
僕は許した覚えはないぞ。ミカサの恋心を無限にしたことはどう思ってるんだ。命が。
そんなのやだ。ミカサに男ができるなんて、一生俺だけを思っててほしい。俺が死んだ後もしばらく10年以上は引きずっててほしい。
ああ、そこまでかっこ悪いことを言うと。
今のはミカサには言わないでくれ。幸せになってほしいんだよ、本当に。
And I think here lies the problem. The way Eren acts.
死にたくねえ。ミカサと見てと一緒にいたい。
諦めずに探そう。他の道がないか。
ダメだ。
So I understand this might be happening somewhere in the past.
殺した。
He knows how it ends.
ことを。なんで。
俺は文字通り壁外人類の根絶を完遂しようとしてお前たちに阻止される。その結果が8割。壁外世界はパラディ島と同等の文明レベルに陥ることになる。つまり一方的な報復戦争にはならないだろうが、この争いは終わらない。
なんなんだよそれは。僕たちがやったことは無駄だって言いたいのか。いいからまだ起きてない虐殺を止めるんだ。
できない。お前たちが救える人類は2割までだ。もう決まっている。
He's given up.
自分で決めて自分で殺したんだろ。
もう何度も試みては失望したが、未来の記憶は寸分たがわぬまま起こることは変わらなかった。アルミ、お前が言った通り、俺は
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way.
バカなことを。
I agree, Albert. I agree.
取り返しがつかないのか。ありえない。こんなのは解決じゃない。人がいなきゃ戦争は起きないだと。こんな冗談を真に受けるやつがあるか。エレン、確かにこの戦いは終わりが見えないし、僕たちが体験した地獄は何度も何度も繰り返されたよ。きっとそれでもいつか、いつの日かきっと分かり合えるって、そんなささやかな願いさえもう誰も信じない。残された教訓は殺すか殺されるか、それだけだよ。
It's a very bleak and sad one.
全ては僕たちのためにやったっていうのか。
エレン、お前の名前だ。いや、違う。エレン、お前は自由だ。俺は平らにしたかったんだ。この景色が見たかった。
なんで。
なんでかわからねえけど、やりたかったんだ。どうしても。ありふれたバカが力を持っちまった。だからこんな結末を迎えることしかできなかった。
You're trying to retroactively justify it in some way. Well, not justify, but explain it. I think you don't understand yourself, Eren.
誰もいない自由な世界をエレンに想像させたのは僕だ。
That doesn't make you guilty,
それ
Armin.
を
やっと気づいて。二人で。
He takes the guilt upon himself as well. Friends, despite all of
時
this.
間だ。ここで過ごした記憶は消すが、全てが終わった時にまた思い出すだろう。
次は殺し合いだね。そしてその次に会う時は。
ああ、先に待ってる。地獄で。
ずっと一緒だ。もう怪我は治ったの。あれ、兄。
Oh, I forgot that. This is when he remembered. Holy shit. This is when he remembered. And this is when he gained the resolve to end it all. Eren just wouldn't have made him forget. There's so many things that can be said here, right? So many things that went wrong. I don't quite, I still, after all these years of knowing the manga ending, I still don't really know. I still don't really know what to think of the way this was written.
Armin も記憶が戻ったんでしょう。エレンが私たちに会いに来ていた時の。聞いたよ。イカサがもたらした選択の結果が巨人の力をこの世から消し去ることになるって。
But was this the only way?
律儀なクソバカ野郎め。エレン、お前ってやつは。
エレンがよ、母ちゃんも人に戻るって言ってたんだ。
あいつが私たちに長生きしろって。
In a broken world, though.
余計なお世話なんだよ。死に急ぎ野郎。
I'm with Annie here.
私もお話したかったな。
I'm with Annie.
おかえりなさい。
ただいま。父さん。
This is probably the most bittersweet, stupid,
お前ら
clever
見ていてくれたか。
ending I've ever seen,
これ
really.
が結末らしい。お前らが捧げた心臓の。
Levi.
そうじゃん。
何もいらなかったんだよ。
A little late to realize, but at least we realized it. I think it's the most sad thing that I believe it wouldn't have had to end like this.
あそこで居眠りしてた。
The
いい
tree.
場所だと思う。
And we're at the same position again. Do we let distrust take us over?
今ここでだ。頼む。証明してくれ。
What would be proof?
巨人か。
殺したものです。
This takes me back
あなただったのね。
to season 1,
ずっと私の
when he stood up to the commander.
あなたの愛は長い悪夢だったと思う。もう奪われた命は帰ってこない。それでもあなたに生み出された命があるから私がいる。おやすみなさい、ユミル。
Interesting picture there. What could have been? Mikasa kind of... Oh, I love this shot with her all the way to the left side. And the two layers.
一丸となり声を上げます。勝てば生きる。負ければ死ぬ。戦わなければ勝てない。戦え。戦え。
Dangerous thoughts.
巨人がいなくな
And
って
they always survive.
争いはなくならない。エレンマイと私たちには託されました。残され
And
た
that's
夢
why it
を
was a
ど
fool's
う生きる
errand.
か。この巨人のいない世界を。
Holy shit. Armin had cleaned up nicely.
何度も言うが、既婚者に劣情を抱くのはやめろ。気持ち悪い。
Somebody needs to bonk Reiner.
ジャンは頭の毛が気がかりで仕方ないみたいね。 誰に見せるつもり？諦めの悪い連中だから。私は憲兵だけど、とりあえずまだ殺されないさ。パラディ島のみんなは知りたい。
Bro is looking more and more like Irvin, holy shit.
僕たちの物語を。
Levi. On young Capone. He survived.
さ
The symbolism, the tree. And the birds of freedom.
僕たちが見てきた物語。
Holy shit, Mikasa.
嬉しいでしょ。
Honestly, Mikasa doesn't deserve this. That's my serious opinion. A sign by the universe.
マフラーを巻いてくれてありがとう。
And there they are. Characters we spent like 10 years with. It's insane. It would be over at some point. I mean, it had to be over at some point. The way it ended, it's highly controversial, of course. I mean, as many of you, even the anime-onlys, can imagine, back when the manga came out, people have been all up in arms with it. All the little intricacies that happened. Even that, just now. But, I mean, I guess, first of all, it makes sense to me. And, I'm glad that it didn't end quite as sadly. That you find some peace here and there. And that the rest of our crew are alive and optimistically going into the future. I still don't like the bleak view on certain things and the way things played out to be, but I guess they wouldn't have been quite as dramatic if they turned out differently, right? Oh, holy shit. Yes, and conflict will always return. I think that was one of the last manga panels. Rearing up against the merciless flow of time and the inevitability of human conflict, but you know, you want to do it anyway, right? But it shows you kind of how fruitless, not entirely fruitless, right? There's some positive in that, but how fruitless Eren's effort really was. And how there's no guarantees in life, how the cycle always continues in some way or another. But how we can still hope that at some point in the future, We're gonna reach a place where, at least for certain times, for certain periods, things are more peaceful, things are more, and we can come to an understanding and try to understand each other better. But the cycle repeats itself, of course. So the question is, was this really necessary? But I don't think that's the main point of the show, right? It's more like a cautionary tale with a very bittersweet and slightly optimistic ending. Very sad on many places, yeah. It's been a ride, most definitely. It's been an amazing ride, and I think Attack of Titan was kind of like one of the first anime that really got me into the fact that, like, introduced me to the fact that anime can be more than just children's cartoons, that there's serious things that could be happening, dramatic things, important questions that anime can ask. As much as season 1 was really very surface level on some areas and some levels, it also dealt with a lot of topics that were a lot heavier than what I was used to back in the day when I was still a young teenager or a kid, when you were watching, like, I don't know, Dragon Ball and One Piece and whatnot. But it introduced you kind of to the idea that there was more to it, or there could be more to it than there was. Anyway, we are gonna make a cut. I'm gonna write some stuff down, and then we're gonna scroll through it. I don't know how long it's gonna take. This is a long movie, but I don't want to hold up too long. I would probably just gonna talk about some basic things, basic themes. What I think the ending was gonna tell us, how I think it all cleaned up in the end, also with the little scene with, like, Eren and Mikasa, in that alternate kind of timeline or version or whatever, and then we're gonna go through. I don't think there's a lot that has to be said about the characters. We do have some natural progressions, who ends up with whom, and who survives, and who gets reunited with people they love and whatever. But other than that, I do think we're just gonna go into it and look at general themes, and in the end then conclude with how I experienced the series myself, and what I thought about the ending on an emotional level, on a personal subjective level. Any opinion I have, and even the facts I think I have are subjective, of course, but more subjective level in this case. Yeah. I'll see you in the discussion, hopefully. Let's get this started, shall we? I don't know if I'm ready for this. Honestly, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I do not know if I'm ready. Where to start with this incredible long movie, anime / whatever. First of all, let me just speed through it. Animation. Honestly, I don't have time to look at animation. Animation is, in some parts, really amazing. All the moving pieces. It's a spectacle we can most definitely, or one can most definitely analyze. The panels that are drawn, the shots. I mean, look at that. The determination, the horror, all the things that are happening, right? And you're watching, where it's looking at it. This moment, this is one moment I will really like to highlight. This Sean and Reiner holding on to each other, and Reiner and Sean have such a history from being kind of comrades, more or less, to betrayal, and both of them developed in such an amazing way. Reiner with his hero complex and his split personality, and his will to die, and all of these things, and his constant exhaustion and PTSD, definitely PTSD, I'm pretty sure, and guilt and all of these things, and Sean with really growing into his own role from that brat that had, like, these ideas of just taking it slowly and and having a good life in the interior to joining the scouts, braving his incredible fear, and coming in the end coming to this point, loving Mikasa as well, which hopeless endeavor, right? He constantly been in Eren's footsteps and being Eren's double more or less in every single way, which is a very interesting and funny parallel we draw here. Which is also why I feel like Sean can emphasize so well with Eren on some levels, and I do most definitely see why it was so hard for him also as Eren's friend in the end to make this decision, because he's been in a similar situation as well. He might not have had the Titan power, but he experienced all of these things. Look at these shots, surrounded by enemies. So many crazy, amazing designs with like the primal armor Titan here, and this Warhammer version with like a trident, and I think maybe a jaw version with the devil horns, and all of these incredible cool shots. I do not have the time to pay attention to all of them. All the incredible flying sequences where you fly and kind of make your way with the maneuver gear or with Falco's form through the rib cage of Eren, through the spine and whatnot. And we do have Falco's final form, him playing the pivotal role. I do remember the ED of season 4 of the final season, the first core of Attack on Titan, with Falco lying on the battlefield looking up, stretching out his hand to the bird in the sky. And this is the foreshadowing, right, to what we see here. Yeah, and all of them are coming together through one way or another, right? Through circumstances, through Annie, because she wanted to grab on. Falco was gonna fly, and they managed to do that, and the ship sank. And now she's helping. Of course, she's helping. Armin is being captured and being held by Eren. Levi holding on to that final mission that he has. He wanted to kill Zeke. He promised Erwin, and he wants to fulfill that mission. And even though his feelings for Zeke certainly changed at this point, and he certainly has another perspective on him, there is this promise that he made, and there's also the necessity to get the beast out of the way to stop Eren. John's grimacing face, Mikasa's slow realization. We need to do it. It's necessary. And everybody is trying to convince them. We do have the confrontation. Do they trust each other, right? All it takes is one shot to escalate this whole situation. All it takes is one person standing up being like, no, I won't shoot them, to de-escalate the situation. And then there's this standstill. Do we continue on? Does the cycle continue, or does it not? And even in the face of all the things that are happening, and the general makes the right decision here. And we fight our way through the thicket. We fight our way through with the... I do need to look that thing up, the Okapi. I definitely heard the name before, I just couldn't identify it right away. And Irvin and all these means to, right, their wills. An incredible shot of Mikasa flying, and then she's going in for the typical signature spin move of hers. The sword breaks, everybody. There's multiple moments in here where people are surrounded, they're nearly dying, they're lost. And Armin, with the frustration, I said that before, you can transfer that onto so many things. You can go from serious illnesses like MS, and suddenly your body doesn't move anymore the way you want it to move, to getting old, right? Or also just to simple situations, being in a situation where you're so fearful that your entire body wants to run away, or you're frozen in place, and you're like, God fucking damn it, I want to do this, I know I can do this, but my body won't move, it's not listening to me. Or when you're going beyond your limits, right? All of these things, and you're feeling useless and you're hating yourself. But yes, there's self-hate, self-blame, self-guilt, especially in Armin. We see that later on in all of the especially in the scene where he talks to Eren and all of that, we see the guilt is heavy on Armin with all the things he's done, all the atrocity he had to do, right? The hard decisions he had to make, and he's still feeling useless, despite the fact that he's anything but, right? He is probably, and that's my opinion, he is probably the savior of humanity. That was the one thing, in my opinion, that Eren was right about. And he wasn't right about it in the way that we later, that later gets explained by Eren, why he was right doing the things he was going to do. But he was right about, even if Eren didn't do anything, I think Armin would have been the key person to broker that peace, to find a peaceful solution and find a way to also cleverly position himself in a way to find some solution, even if people wouldn't want to play along and wouldn't want to play peace and were too paranoid and too hateful of the Eldians. Even then, he might have been the person to, or would have been the person to find a way to kind of turn it on its head and find a way to, on the one hand, broker the peace, and on the other hand, keep other people that didn't want to play along in check. I do believe that, because Armin is that kind of person. But Armin realizes at some point, oh yeah, that I wanted to talk about this incredible scene. Well, first of all, scenes of destruction are always very awe-inspiring for me, and I think a lot of other people feel the same way. But why is that, right? That is a very interesting concept to look into. I personally don't know a lot about it, so it would be very interesting to see like these scenes of destruction. But I think it's just the scale of things, right? If you imagine what this would mean, being in this very moment, being able to, as a human being, put yourself in the perspective of others, seeing all this work of centuries of civilizations that built up being destroyed in the moment. It's very sad, it's very grueling, but it's also very awe-inspiring on the same time. Just as much as building a great civilization or building a great construct, that the simple concept of that is very, very impressive and very awe-inspiring. The opposite is as well. The destruction of all these things, that might have to do with the power that is involved here, right? The scope it affects. And after all, many humans, you and me included, probably do have this deep desire to change things in the world, to affect things in the world, and to affect things on such a global scale, even if it is destruction. That is something that really impresses people a lot, and that something very, very unique and special to see, especially if it's in media where we can enjoy it from here and where it does not have the actual real life consequences it would have. But yeah, there's so much more to unpack here. But I wanted to look at this scene specifically here with the baby, and that scene made me very emotional, because it shows that with all the infighting and all the shoving each other away, getting to get to a better position, right? We saw it before in the first movie, where people were driving by in a car and other people jumped onto it, threw the people out of the car, tried to drive themselves to get away from the danger, right? Everybody, like me first and everybody else last. But we do have this one moment, this piece of humanity, and it's, sorry about that, and it's amazingly done, really. Like this black and white shot, and the only thing that has color, that has red color, oh, damn it, I ruined it. The only thing that has color, that has red color, is this one crying baby, woven into its cloth, being passed on from human to human, and nobody is stretching their hand out, pushing it away or whatever. And it symbolizes kind of this philosophy of like trying to save the next generation, right? This thing about like children are our future, they're our hope, and it symbolizes that there's good in humanity, with all the chaos going on, with all the selfishness, with all the survival instincts kicking in. They still pass the baby on and hope that it survives. And it's also very interesting because we do have a red cloth, which Mikasa wears the red scarf, right? That is kind of like a connection here, a connection point. because Eren had the scarf back in when he was a baby, and yeah. I don't quite know what it symbolizes specifically, so if you have any idea how to connect that, that is really cool, but I noticed that. So that is a very interesting artistic choice to make as well. Naaman realizes this is sand and he's in the paths, and he slowly awakens to the fact that he can at least slightly influence the paths as a member of the Eldian race. And he talks to Zeke, and they get very, very philosophical about what? Well, what is it that we live for? Are we just, right? Zeke states the obvious, right? We live to reproduce. That is our most basic instinct. Pass on, like the baby in the last shot. We pass it on to our next generation and hope that the next generation can make things better, right? Improve upon us as a species, as with all the things, right? From biology over technology to morality. But what do we live for, right? And I do really like this idea of like building sandcastles that we do see later on, right in between them. That this philosophy of like, what do we do if everything is so? If we see it in a grand scope of things, everything zoomed out, and look at the fact that history repeats itself over and over. What do we even live for? Do we live for the moment, or do we have grand goals? Or maybe it's a bit of both, right? Maybe it's a bit of both, and in the right moments we need to remember the right things. It is important to have goals in life. It's important to have convictions, and maybe even important to have ideals, although I would warn against too idealistic a view, because it's simplifying a lot of stuff that we shouldn't be simplifying, that we should be taking at a case-by-case basis. But yeah, maybe it's very important to have convictions and goals in life, but it is also very important to understand that you shouldn't lose sight of the moment, of the present, because if you're just living in the future and making plans and never taking that step in the present, then you're never going to get anywhere. And if you're just living in the past thinking about what happened and what could have happened, then you're not living in the present enough to take that step as well to make things differently in the future. You're being held prisoner by your past and by your future, and I think that is one aspect that applies to Eren here. He's being held prisoner by all the things he's seen, all the things that are happening at the same time, as he's saying later. And with that, we do jump on a little bit. I don't want to go through it too much, right? Zeke doesn't understand Ymir. He tried to understand her, but he can't. Armin has kind of like a clue here. It's very cool, very well done artistically to have it be the leaf for Armin, but the same object being the baseball bat for Zeke. Because it shows that here in the paths, concepts have a certain form and a certain shape, and it's all relative to who we are and our perspective from where we come from. And for Zeke, that is being able to spend all his time with his foster father, basically, with Xaba. And we do fight together here. I do wonder if Pika and John could have been a thing, because Pika is kind of looking a little bit like Mikasa, and although she's very tough, she's very witty, she's a nice person, so I do wonder if there would have been a chance in some alternate universe. Armin and Annie meet again. We have a lot of cool Titan concepts, the ram, for example, here. Zeke letting himself get killed. And the important scene, Bertold and Armin. They appeal to the people they've known in the past, to their predecessors, to all the other people out there, all the other Titan holders. Hey, please, we need your help. Fight for us, fight with us. And all of them have a stake in this. Some of them more, some of them less. But all of them have to have a stake in this. Grisha, who told Zeke at the end, please, whatever you do, try to stop Eren. Although we don't know if it was maybe also Eren talking to Grisha, talking to Zeke again, because Eren in a way, you could say he wanted to get stopped, or at least he knew he was gonna get stopped, so he did the necessarily he made the necessary steps, did the precautions to make sure it actually happens. We do get to that later when we talk about Mikasa a little bit. Eren Kruger, who was a revolutionary, he wanted Elia to be free, but he also wouldn't want a genocide like this. And Bertolt, who has his stake as well in this, who still has Reiner going on there, right? And Annie, who he cared very much about. They all have their stake in this fight, and appealing to them, I think, was the right decision here. Appealing to the only people that are more or less somewhat independent from the will of the founding Titan, who have their own will going on. And yeah, Zeke gets killed by Levi. He finally fulfills his purpose, and the Titans stop because royal blood, right? Zeke was the connecting point, and as soon as this thing was severed, the connection between Eren and the how is it called? Hallucigenica, or however it's called. This giant weird worm that we did never get an explanation for. But to be fair, it wasn't the point of the anime. It wasn't the point of the story to have an explanation for this otherworldly force. It was just there to enable us to tell these stories in such a spectacular and global fashion and whatnot. And we do look back at this. At this moment, this very fast glimpse of the moment of Historia giving birth to a child, very interesting. That kind of shows us all this destruction going on, all this world-ending chaos, and a new life is born, right, into this world. Because I was born into this world, like Eren said in the beginning. You have the amazing smoke effects, I really like that. And the reunion of many people that are very happy that the warriors made it back, because over time they realized that it's more what is more important than them having recognition and being heroes is them actually being there with their family and getting to enjoy each other's company. And we do thread the last fights, because until Eren dies, this is not gonna end. That's the decision Eren has made. I want to jump over this a little bit. The only thing, we're gonna talk about this for a second. This incredible moment of Jean and Connie and all the scouts being here and saying, hey, so this is how it ends for us. I mean, they were always ready, right? The moment they stepped out, and then we have that song earlier, that season 1 song. I don't know how it's called. Honestly, maybe I'll search for the name and actually put it down here, because I really like these songs, but there's so many cool songs. There's so many cool songs out there. I think the other song that was played was Barricade, and this one, the name slips me again, but it was this iconic song when John and the others decided to stay and to join the scouts, to join the Service Corps. And I mean, from that moment on, they knew that it was gonna end one way or another. And they reminiscent back the moment they burned the corpses and made their decision. Marco was a big motivator for Sean, a big agent of change for him, to the positive. Yeah. Could you imagine back then how it was? And we did think nothing changed, right? Back then, the Service Corps, we thought we joined the Service Corps to fight for humanity. And then we find out the world is much bigger than we thought it is, and we're still fighting the same fight. It's kind of cyclic. It's kind of it rhymes, and that is what makes it a great story in this regard. And we do have to face our demons one more time. Reiner, Jean, everybody has to say goodbye to something, sacrifice something. At least in their mind, right? They believe they sacrifice something. Some of them have, and others them have less. The sacrifice isn't sure yet, but they made peace with that, and they're at that point. And now we do have the final confrontation. Reiner holding on, everybody helping them with the old warrior unit, and we do have the cutback to the dream. Alright, should I talk about the dream right now? Alright, we talk about the dream right now. The dream. It's really hard for me to say what this dream represents here. I think this dream represents, in a way, something that Eren wanted to be the case, right? Eren's and Mikasa's desire. Let's run away. Let's live our lives peacefully. Let's end it without making any decision. But that's what I said earlier in the beginning in the pre-discussion. What I feel, in my personal opinion, people regret the most is not making any decision. I mean, okay, they made the decision to run away, but it's a decision to not make a decision in regards to what the world is going to be, right? Have all this power in their hands. They have all these possibilities that don't all look great. All of them look shitty, but they have all these possibilities, shitty and insecure. Some of them are better than others, but they're not surefire ways to deal with this situation. They run away, right? They run away from the situation. That's a valid response, right? That's a functional response. It might save you in some cases, might be better in some cases, but obviously confronting might be better and might be more in line with Eren's character, even if what he wishes is, in the end, a peaceful life with Mikasa. And this is what Eren and Mikasa wanted. And he's showing her. And this is how it would be. It would be peaceful, it would be beautiful, but at the end, all of their friends, they're gonna die. Either way, right? They're gonna die, everything's gonna go. At least that is what happens in Eren's mind. We don't know, and that is something I wanted to kind of talk about. We don't know if this is something Eren saw in a memory, that it was one of the loops. We don't know if there's loops, right? The way this whole thing is put into each other, it's a giant loop, right? We do see in the first episode of Attack on Titan, if we go here, the first episode of Attack on Titan, we do see the "see you later, Eren," that Mikasa says, Eren slowly opening his eyes as she's like, hey, wake up, it'll get dark soon, and they're kids. And we do see in the final panel, when we see that dream scene, the long dream, right? We do see, that's how the chapter is called. We do see this alternate version with Mikasa kind of bending down here and being "see you later," and we do see the Titan marks on Eren's head, but we do see basically the mirrored scene, and we also do see in the manga panel, the next panel that comes after that one, Eren's like, I feel like I was in the longest dream, or I was in a long dream, and this is how it loops. This is how it closes the circle, basically. So we don't know if that was a loop and Eren lived through it and he was like, nah, it's not gonna work out, and that is the information that got relayed to our Eren, to the one we followed from the beginning to the end. Or if this is something happening in Eren's mind where it's like, okay, I played through the possibility and it's not gonna work out, and there are all these things like our friend's gonna die, probably, and everything's gonna end. Even if we run away, even if we choose not to take action and fight, and know if that's the case or not. It's certainly both possible that it was an actual thing happening. Then again, what are dreams, right? Can we differentiate dreams from reality? How can we do that? Because oftentimes dreams and reality have show us the same neural activity that's happening. And the only thing that differentiates a dream from reality is us more or less judging it to be a dream rather than reality. I mean, obviously there's more to it, right? We do have a sense that there's, but most of the neural activity when we actively dream, is the same as if we would experience in reality. So it's a very interesting philosophical concept, at least, even though it doesn't necessarily matter for psychology in that way. It just matters in that regard that it's very interesting for analyzing our personal development and also our ability to process things happening in our reality and solving problems within our dreams, which is one of the theories going on, that dreams are in a way a phase in which the brain is trying to solve reality's problems and trying to play through them and find ways. I mean, that's also one of the theories that right before we die, our life flashes before our eyes in an attempt to figure out some way to get out of this situation. But yeah, we don't know if that's the case. That's the meaning in universe, at least. Eren sends this message to Mikasa. He's like, "This is how it would be, and you need to give up this almost unhealthy, right, obsession with me." And even though he might not feel that way deep inside himself, he does want to send this message to her. And we do get this scene of like, it kind of confirms in universe, it confirms us what Eren's real feelings for Mikasa are and what his intentions are, and that there was actually something, and that he would have loved to maybe live a peaceful life if he wasn't born in the times he was born in, if he wasn't born in the situations he was born in. I do still think there would have been another way, and there would have been a way to have this happy ending. An actual happy ending, I mean. Now, the question is, would have been as good a story on a narrative level, and that is obviously a question to answer for all you literature students out there, and for you media obsessed people who really like delving deep into what makes a movie or a series or a book a really engaging story. But yeah, going back, let's see what happens next. I purposefully stopped it on this, by the way, to just showcase again that I really love the simplicity in which they are both drawn, and how they're very different from the surrounding environment, right? The environment is very high detailed and drawn and very like shiny, and they're very papery in their display. I wonder if there's something you can read into that in terms of metaphor, but I just like the image. So it's a great shot in my opinion. And Mikasa gets her resolve, and suddenly she knows where Eren is. And this is one thing I also wanted to say. First of all, amazing sequence again. It reminded me of kind of how like Levi in I mean, obviously also a lot of Mikasa sequences, but also how Levi's sequence in season 3, the first core, season 3 first core, yes, where we had the human and human conflict, and he had to flee out of that situation where they're trying to kill him, and he's going through all of these obstacles, and that was an amazing animation scene. Some of these sequences remind me of that, although there's more CGI used now, probably thanks to Mappa. But yeah, how did she know that Eren was exactly there in the mouth, right, hanging out there as a weird skeleton head? I do think it's because in that moment she got sent that information, or at least Eren unlocked that information again. It was inside of her. That's also maybe partially the cause of her headaches. She realized all of these things. I do think that Eren and Mikasa probably had another talk that we didn't see, where he explained the things or most of the things that he explained to Armin as well, with how this all was going to go out and what his plan was and what his idea was, except for the pathetic part of him being like being very vulnerable and, as Armin puts it, lame. But yeah, and this is how she knew, and she got the information, she got the resolve, and she's going in, and this is their final goodbye. This is their final goodbye, and then we do see this moment. See you later, Eren, which is like a very famous moment out of manga. Some people loved it, some people hated it. Kind of a little bit morbid. She cut his head off and she's kissing it, and we do see Ymir smiling in the background, because I think and this is something many people will get, right? Ymir, in her most basic form, was yearning for some kind of human connection and love, because she's experienced a lot of hardship in her life. She's experienced a lot of death and cruelty, and I think there's a lot of probably Stockholm syndrome and other things going on when it comes to her revering and loving King Fritz. And I would argue that maybe there was some part of her just like Mikasa, that was obsessively in love in a way that was very unhealthy. I also do think that, and this is some narrative criticism here, they could have made a better job, could have done a better job at giving us more backstory on Ymir. I do think that we can't in any way properly fathom why Ymir loved King Fritz, because we can fathom why Mikasa loved Eren, right? We do have that story about like how they grew up, what happened, and Eren he wasn't a normal kid, but he was a good-hearted kid, right? He had certain characteristics that could be turned to bad, but at the same time, he had a lot of characteristics. He was brave. He was passionate. He had a yearning for freedom. He had the ability to inspire people to follow him, right? And an incredible will. So this is also why I think that it's so tragic and so sad that Eren, in the end, in my opinion, lost his will. He lost his agency here, but let's talk about that later. We can't really fathom why Ymir loved Fritz. We can't fathom why she might have idolized him, or why she might have kind of romanticized the idea of being together with someone. We can also look into Stockholm Syndrome, identifying with your captor and with your tormentor and whatever. That is a common thing, and it happens. But we can't really... Was it really a deep love, right? And we can't really fathom why or how that could happen. But going beyond that, and that is narrative criticism, I do think it should have been displayed better, and there should have been more characterization of Ymir. But going beyond that, I do believe that the narrative meaning of Mikasa's special moment here, being so important for Ymir is to show that you can love someone, but that there's a point at which you do have to move beyond that obsession, beyond that love, even if you truly love someone, and stop them from doing what they're doing. That this dichotomy of thought, right? This dichotomy of being with someone, being for someone, absolutely caring for someone, but at the same time having to stand in their way, is a thing that can exist. And apparently, at least so the story goes, in Ymir's 2,000 years of existence, this has not been a thing that happened for any of the Titan holders that she could observe. So Mikasa here is a unique case in which her and Ymir kind of mirror each other, and Eren and Fritz mirror each other. Although I would say that I'll take Eren any time of the day before King Fritz, because King Fritz in this story is just characterized as an evil bastard, and we don't see more than that. I mean, obviously, copulation, having sex, loving someone, right? There might be some intimacy going on there, but the way he treats people that we have seen has been a completely different way that Eren treated people, and it's not just Mikasa, but also people around him in general. Aside from that little stunt where he tried to push people away in order to get them to follow through on that. But yeah, the long dream, and we do have a discussion between Armin and Eren, and they're looking at all the wonders of the world in their dreamscape, which is amazing. But Eren kind of explains to them that this was what he found out. Ymir must have loved Fritz. He can't fathom it himself. Only Mikasa, or no, not only Mikasa. Only Ymir knows why Mikasa was so significant to her, which is true. Only Isayama knows. We can only guess. We see the auroras, and I don't know. Eren's plan was to be the villain of the world and be defeated, and he said it couldn't be avoided and all that, and he saw that he destroyed 80%, and Armin is obviously upset about that. He is like, Eren, you dumbass, isn't there another way? We don't talk about this pathetic scene, by the way. I mean, maybe I'm harsh calling it pathetic, but my opinion on this is the following, right? My opinion on this is that Eren here lets his guard down and is being very vulnerable. And I commend him for that. But at the same time, I think this is at the core of the issues that Eren has. And that is kind of the culmination of why we landed at the place we landed. Because Eren couldn't talk to people. Eren couldn't talk to Mikasa about his troubles and worries and whatnot because he didn't want to hurt her or burden her with it. The same with Armin, the same with all of his friends because they're precious to him and he wanted them to live a long and peaceful life. And maybe they can do that despite the things that happened, but they can't do that because of the things that happened. In my opinion, they can do that despite the things that happened. Right? It's their resilience, their ability to get over these traumatic experiences, over these bad times, that enables them to maybe live a somewhat peaceful and happy life after all of this happened. But it's not thanks to Eren, in my opinion, and that is where Eren went wrong. If Eren had talked to them from the beginning and they had tried to figure that out together, yes, the desperation, the suffering, all of this would be inside of everyone's head in that regard, right? But Eren can send messages to people, show them things. So in that regard, he could have shown them everything. He could have shown them everything and could have sat down with them and said, guys, I don't know what to do. I'm desperate. I lost all hope. But he didn't want to appear vulnerable. He wanted to be moving forward and was solid in his conviction. And I think it's good to have your convictions, good to move forward, to dread on, but relying on others is one of the most basic human things you can do and you should do. Because you can't live your life alone, and that is the mistake Eren made. He thought that to protect everyone, so everyone is happy, so everyone he cares about is fine, he had to shove them away, and he had to do this thing alone, and he had to fool the entire world, right? The man who sold the world, cue the Metal Gear 5, Metal Gear Solid 5 intro, cue David Bowie. He thought he had to do that alone, and that was one of his basic mistakes, in my opinion. There would have been a solution, a better solution for this. Now, would it have made for a better story, or for a story as good as this? I don't know. I couldn't craft the story. I think Isayama is a very, very talented author. I don't agree with his views on some things. I don't agree with the connotations that he has in some of his, especially the ending here. But I do think he, like, moment to moment and like twist to twist, really did a really great job with this work of art. And it's some people call it a masterpiece. Wouldn't call it a masterpiece, but certainly some of his writing has masterpiece status. Even some of the writing in Attack on Titan itself, right? The earlier seasons and whatnot. But yeah, I think there would have been a different solution. There could have been a different solution. And with that, we kind of get also into the big question of what is Eren supposed to represent here? What is his reasoning here? And we explained some of it, right? He wanted to play the villain and whatnot, but we also later know that not all of this is actually true. He says, well, I was kind of fooling myself. I thought I was doing that for you guys, but in the end, I kind of just wanted to see the surface flattened, right? I wanted to see the world without any human beings. I had that resentment inside of me, this desire to not be around humans, to destroy everything, and he doesn't know where this comes from, and I do believe that Eren just doesn't know himself enough for that. He doesn't have the necessary amount of know-how and introspective to really analyze that, and I think to unpack that is very difficult, right? We need to differentiate author's intent from actual characteristics of a potential fictional human being, and right. And you can dig into various aspects of that and have probably hours upon hours of material to talk about and to analyze, to kind of refer to manga panels. I'll leave that to the experts, okay? I'll leave that to the people who make like the 3-hour review on Attack on Titan and what it really means. And everybody watches the channel because that is going to be a breakout for somebody out there who's going to make the video on the Attack on Titan ending. But, yeah, the question is, did the ending humanize Eren? Or did the ending just displaying him as a psychopath? I do think there's arguments to be made for both of these. That Eren was in a way a monster, but also that he was incredibly human, because humans are I mean, this might sound a little bit weird, but humans, in my opinion, are just monsters sometimes. Not all the time. Humans are worth investing in. Humans are worth fighting for and helping and whatnot. But humans can be monsters. They have the capacity to be, and I do think all of us do have the capacity to be monsters, to commit atrocities, to go into that damaged mind state where we do only start hurting others, and right. And the goal is to prevent that from happening in the first place, right? To help people before that happens, to hopefully never to help, to give people the resources to deal with their trauma in life and to deal with difficult situations and to get over them and get out of them relatively undamaged. So why did Eren want to destroy the world? Now, lots of theories there, and I don't want to go too deep into it, but I think this desire for destruction, in a way, could be read as a desperate need for control. We do have that in a lot of psychological theories, where we do look at people enjoying to destroy things. We observe that not only in damaged individuals or individuals that have serious mental illnesses, but also in normal, in quote unquote, right? Individuals which are within the norm when it comes to their stress level, their personality traits, their mental health. And they do enjoy the destruction of things, and that goes back to our desire to control the world around us. Now, Eren is in a situation where he, through all the memories he got, through all the stuff that's overwhelming him, by the way, it's also overwhelming him, so it's overwhelming his resources to deal with that stress, to deal with all these problems and situations that are happening basically at the same time. For him, the past, the future, the present, they don't exist as clear concepts anymore. He doesn't know which is where and what is which, right? He's barely holding on to his own consciousness and understanding of what's happening. So his resources are overwhelmed, but also he lives in a world where, growing up, he never had control over his life. He was always caged in and had to follow strict rules to a degree, right? Always had to fear that things were coming from the outside to destroy him. Not free to move wherever he wanted, to see wherever he wanted, to explore out in the world. Then he grew up and he learned that through action, through fighting for Tatake, right? Tatake. Through fighting for the things that were important to him, right? He could achieve something, and he went out in the world believing that things are gonna be fine. And then comes the big realization with all these memories flooding in, and everything, in my opinion, also happening too fast for him to process it properly. Because no matter how much time he has, if everything comes breaking in to him at one moment, that can break a person, right? And then he comes to realize that everything that he's done, everything that happened up until now was predetermined. At least that's what he believes, right? I mean, there's a very strong suggestion in Isayama's design that everything is predetermined indeed. But there's these little glimpses that it might not be. There's just little glimpses that say, okay, maybe this is in Eren's head. Maybe Eren just believed that everything was predetermined. And by believing everything was predetermined, he created a self-fulfilling prophecy in which he first started to test if everything was predetermined, and then realized that everything was indeed, in his opinion, in his mind, predetermined. And then he gave up, right? He gave up. The person who fought for freedom, who fought so hard to do all of these things, he gave up, he lost hope. And that is the moment he broke apart, right? The moment where he realized nothing in his life was under his control. And it is irrelevant if that was the actual truth, right? If it was the laws of the universe, or if it was only the truth in his subjective perspective. As long as he believed it, as long as it's his perspective and that is his belief, his fundamental belief that everything is predetermined, he can't do anything to change it, then this informs his reality and has the necessary consequences in what actions he's going to take. And these actions that he's going to take are destruction, because destruction, even if deep inside himself he believes that everything is predetermined, he can't change anything, this act of this urge to destroy everything is for him a giant outbreak of trying to regain control, like subconscious outbreak of him trying to regain control over his life. So that's a way you could see that. That's the way you could see that. I mean, obviously, it's not complete, it's not comprehensive, it's not clear, it's not proven in any way. This is all just theories based on a little bit of psychology that makes sense, but psychology, as any other science, is also just a theory. There's just, right, we can't prove anything. We can just garner evidence and support a certain theory. But theories in and of themselves in psychology and in any other science are just us trying to get as close as possible to the truth. And yeah, this is one single aspect among probably a dozen or more aspects that could have led Eren to do the things he does, and it's very tragic that we have a character which is so focused on freedom, so a slave to freedom, one might say, right? If we think back on Kenny, what he said, everybody is a slave to something to keep going. A slave to their own convictions, to their own beliefs, to their own goals. Psych, with his euthanasia plan, with his whole idea of to die is to be released from your suffering. To never be born is to be spared from suffering. And then him later realizing maybe that's not what it was all about. Maybe that was fundamentally wrong on my part. I wish I could have realized that sooner, he says. And yes, maybe if he realized that sooner, he could have changed something. But for Eren, everything was played out already, and he didn't see any way out of that. And that is what ultimately made him give up as a human being. And as soon as you give up as a human being, there's very little that you hold on to, right? Maybe the most desperate, most obsessed things we still cling on to these things, right? In Eren's case, it's his friends, his bond through parody, and he wanted to at least make sure that this part of the philosophy was fulfilled. If the world is gonna be destroyed, I'm gonna do it as long as my friends might make it out alive. But the fallacy in that is, the funny thing, he even confirms that later, he didn't even know if his friends are gonna survive, so he might as well have tried the peaceful path, right? The peaceful path that Armin was gonna try. Because there you don't have security, you don't know what's gonna happen, but at least you have that hope. And I think that's what distinguishes Armin from Eren. I do also, it's very hard on me that Armin is feels so incredibly guilty about Eren coming to the conclusions that he's coming to. Obviously, he's his best friend and he's suffering with him, and he can't imagine all the pain that Eren went through. But he also knows, and he says it himself in this discussion they're having in the dreamscape, Eren, you're stupid, you're a fucking idiot. And Eren knows it as well. But Eren can't change the way he works right now, and he's stuck in his own head, he's stuck in his own mind. And I think if he had talked more, if he had talked more to Armin and Mikasa, he might have been able to avoid this fate. But I also think that the way Eren developed, the way the entire story developed, maybe it was inevitable, because that's just how Eren acts. It's a very tragic tale, a very tragic cautionary tale in my opinion. And Armin kind of goes down with the ship, right? Armin sees himself as responsible. I showed you all these dreams out there. I made your mind dream. I opened you up to the possibility, right? It's like telling somebody, I showed you all this life of luxury, and now you have to go back to your poverty, and you can't stand it. Or I showed you all this technology, and now you have to go back to, like, hypothetical, right? In time travel stories, whatever, and you're stranded in like the 1700s or in the 1500s or whatever, and you know all this technology from the modern age, and you go back to that time and you're like, fuck, I can't live like this. Obviously a lot less severe in this case, but here is like him feeling incredibly responsible, and I don't think he's responsible for it. These hopes and dreams, they could have very well led to a very good ending for Eren, a very good outcome if things would have been differently. And we could argue about if that's fate, if it's predetermined, if we have free will, if there's what possibilities are out there, but in the end, it's all just speculation, right? Armin is hopeful to the end, and that is something I appreciate about him, something that makes him one of my favorite characters. He's not only incredibly intelligent, but Armin is also not very responsible, very very heartfelt, and has an open heart for everyone, even quote unquote monsters, if he knows how they work and if they're his friends and whatnot. And I totally forgot that this was the moment when he actually got the memories. That is insane that he got them at this moment. This is how it ends. Armin cries over his friend dying, something he knew right already, but I mean, that doesn't change that you're sad about it, that you hurt deep inside, and it's probably gonna take him years upon years to heal those wounds. And Levi with his final moments, seeing his comrades having fulfilled his duty. He's a real one. Levi is a fighter. Connie breaking down over seeing the ghost of Sasha. I mean, it's not actually the ghost. I see that as a metaphor, right? I mean, it might be real. It might be through the paths and whatever, but I do see that as a metaphor. At the end of it all, it comes flooding in, and you do remember the people that got lost. But we do have a bright future for some people. Gabby and Falco learned from the past. They're never going to forget these memories. And they made it through, and they have a future. Same for Armin and Annie. Even for Reiner, in a way, making up with his mother, and his mother telling him that she realized that she was wrong in some ways, right? Everybody was wrong in some ways. And Mikasa taking Armin away. Historia with her child as the hope for the future, right? The bright design here. We do see the farms, the lush greenery, all the destruction being grown over by nature again. People recovering, people holding on to grief, but also healing and helping each other out. And that is it's making me kind of emotional. That is the positive side of humanity, right? You see the absolute vile and destructive side of humanity on the one hand, but you do see the positives too. Altruism, and it doesn't matter if you do altruism. Like, there's been a lot of theories about if true altruism actually exists, and or if it's just a matter of you helping other people to feel good about yourself. But it doesn't matter, in my opinion. It literally doesn't matter. You do something good for other people, they appreciate it, and you feel good about it. That's right. That's the fact that you feel good about it, in my opinion, is just a system built into our brains that is very beneficial to us, because sometimes we need, not all the time, and oftentimes it's wrong, but sometimes we need our biology to just overwrite our material needs and greed and whatever, and to tell us, hey, this is what you live for, right? And yeah, I think we're coming slowly to the end of everything. We see fascism or national. No, don't. Let's not say fashion. Let's say nationalism springing up again, and we do see the inevitability of what Eren wanted to prevent. Actually, Eren's ideas are being perpetuated here, and they're living on. And we're not out of the conflict, because conflict will continue on. I mean, there's a couple of people here who have learned these lessons, who are trying to bring them to the next generations. And I think all we can hope for as human beings is that if we manage to get out of conflict and find peace somewhere, that we do have phases in our lives, decades or even centuries, in which there exists peace, right? We do have the problem at the moment here in Europe and like even the surrounding areas. The Middle East is unstable again. We do have regimes and oppression. We do have protests and revolution. We do have actual military conflicts between nations. You guys know what I'm talking about. I don't necessarily want to mention it because I don't know how YouTube's gonna handle that. But and we do have in Europe itself too, right? There hasn't been like a proper war in Europe for almost half a century, and then suddenly shit happens again, and I say a proper war, okay? Like an actual all-out war I'm talking about. Not world war, but war in the sense of like two nations openly fighting with each other in a very broad manner, other than like skirmishes and conflicts and little takeovers, but now we have it again, and I mean, it's nonsensical in the end, and it's just creating human suffering in yeah, but all we can hope for that we have some decades or centuries in which we live relatively peaceful and prosperous lives before the conflict and war starts out again. It's a cycle, and all we do have is the hope to hold on to, right? Hope, and maybe reason in a way. Hope and reason are kind of the drivers of our own prosperity, the drivers of peace. And if there's something we can find solace in, then it is that even if the cycle of war keeps repeating, so does the cycle of peace. It's inevitable. Where there's light, there has to be shadows, but where there's shadows, there also has to be light. Pitch black dark doesn't have shadows. Bright white shining light without any shadows doesn't exist. But yeah, I mean, it would be great if it was, right? It would be great if there was everlasting peace, but it is a dream that as of now hasn't been fulfilled, and all we can hope, I guess, is that future generations will be a little bit better than we were, and we'll learn a little bit from our history, and hopefully we'll never forget our history, so we can keep it in mind for future generations. Yeah, we had the talk about Ymir connections and love. I do like Mikasa's ending. I don't know if I like Mikasa's ending. Honestly. Do I like Mikasa's ending? A very sad ending in my opinion. A very sad song and a very sad ending, and I don't think she deserves this. I mean, obviously, I guess this is the fruit of our obsessions, right? We focus too much on one thing, and then maybe we lose the exact thing that we kept focusing on. And it's very sad for me. That very sad, very romantic, of course, but also very sad that Eren will always be the one for her, and she will never forget him. And that wound will always be there in a way, maybe heal here and there a little bit, but this connection, this soul bond, it's never gonna return, at least in this specific story. We don't know how that, right? I do like to believe that there's multiple people out there that we could be meant for. I don't think that we are meant for a single person out there. I do think that there's the possibility with a lot of people, and at some point it's just gonna happen, and then it is that one person. But yeah, and maybe then that one person dies eventually at some point. That reminds me kind of like of stupid, but the Disney movie Up, where like I don't know how he was called again, the grandpa, and he loses his wife and everything, like on the hill. Holy shit, that was a sad beginning of a movie. Was it ever? Children's movie, by the way, KW. Yeah, but this is a very sad thing. I appreciate that we do see a vague kind of hint at her. First of all, the bird. In my opinion, I mean, there's been a lot of memes and jokes on Eren being the reincarnation or being the bird or whatever, but I don't think it's meant to be this literal. Maybe it is, but I do think that the idea is maybe that the paths still exist on some point, and maybe Eren exists through those paths. Because like Ymir had the paths, right? And with her, the paths kind of died down, and the original being kind of died down, but who's to say that Eren didn't, or that there isn't an afterlife in some way? And Eren is kind of connected to everything, and not just Eren, but everyone who died in a way. I mean, Hanji saw Erwin and everybody else when she died, so. And I think this is symbolism in a way, right? The bird kind of nudging at her, being like a little sign of the universe for Mikasa to move on, to say, hey. Maybe it means, hey, throw that thing away, or maybe it means, hey, I'll always wrap the scarf around you, or in that way, I'll always be with you in spirit. Also, very nice lyrics, echoes of your voice inside my heart. Fight, fight, tatake. Yeah, and then visiting the tree over the years, and Mikasa being buried there. rain falls and sun shines and civilizations rise, and then we see war returning to them. Because this is human nature, right? This is human nature. We don't understand each other. We start conflict and we make peace. And somewhere in a lost future, that kind of reminds me of Nier Automata, kind of. Which is, by the way, an amazing game. If you haven't played that video game, if you're a gamer or somebody who sometimes casually enjoys video games and enjoys anime, play Nier Automata. It's an amazing game. And we are once again at that tree. And maybe the power still exists. Yes, it's Isayama's way to finally put a bow on this and say everything is in a cycle, everything happens again. But will it happen differently? And that is the hope, that is the Dharma in all of us. That there will be something that's different, that not everything is not everything is written in stone. And I do think that even Eren's fate wasn't written in stone. It was just the inevitability of him having this unique combination of personality traits and things happening to him, and then in the end his firm belief and his refusal to talk to his closest friends. I do think there's so much that could have happened that might have been unstable peace or an attempt to do something. But this is a cautionary tale, right? This is not this kind of tale. And I don't think it would have been as heart-wrenching and as dramatic and as impressive, even if some people absolutely hate the ending, as it has been if it would have been written differently. But I do understand why some people hate it or dislike it, because my opinion, a story always tells you something, like gives to you a certain perspective that the author has, or the author wants to either give you along the way, kind of show you or disprove to you. And I do think the connotations that this story has, while it's very romantic and very sweet and very bittersweet, right, very melancholic as well, it kind of reflects how Isayama is on the inside, but it also kind of, in my opinion, is very bleak in a way, very pessimistic, very not Armin. Armin is the only piece in there that's holding on to. That's the piece of Isayama that's kind of like, but I want to believe. But actually, his entire story, the entire story around Armin and the main character Eren, kind of is Isayama saying, but actually, I'm not that optimistic a person. I do have that little spark of optimism in me, that little spark of Armin, but the Eren in me is bigger, right? And that is very, very much a shame for me, because I do think that we all need a little bit more Armin in ourselves. A little bit more pacifistic, optimistic, hopeful, and maybe a little bit naive, but I rather be hopeful and naive than be pessimistic and cynical and defeatist, because I'm not a person who likes to give up. I'm not a person who likes to dwell in negativity. I do think that positivity is one of the most incredible forces in our entire life, and as much as this tale tells us, don't. I think Isayama might almost be like, hey, don't be like me. But either way, an amazing work of art. A very controversial ending, I might say. Very, polarizing ending. Some people love it, some people hate it. But I do think those are the endings that are the most impactful on us, right? Because if the ending is kind of like what you expected, it's often just getting forgotten in memory, unless it's a very, very unique way to tell the ending itself. I mean, but look at the great works, kind of, right? Like Evangelion is the one that springs to my mind. I do think there's a lot of people that do not like the ending in the way it's presented, even if they might like the message a little bit more than what we have here. But right, all of these big endings, they're all being a little bit controversial, a little bit polarizing, and I don't hate it. I don't think it's badly done. I think the manga was kind of a little bit less well done, I do feel there was more of a time rush here, and there could have been more. I do really like some of the additions the anime had, even if I can't immediately recognize them, but I think the anime kind of painted a picture that was a little bit more round, made a little bit more sense as a whole, and gave you a little bit more closure on the general themes of the show. I do still think there's a lot more that we could have delved into, that we could have characterized better, namely most probably Ymir, because that is one thing where I'm like, it wasn't enough for me. It makes sense from literary perspective, right? From a narrative perspective, it makes sense to me when I think about how a narrative unfolds and how it's gonna end, and how you want to spin it, and what Isayama tried to do here. It makes sense, but I think some pieces are missing here that could have been more detailed, that could have been more thought out. And I do also think that some of the decision making of our main characters, especially Eren here, is kind of a little bit of a problem, because there's some flawed logic, some really flawed logic in there. And even if the narrative itself kind of acknowledges this and says, "Hey, Eren, you're a fucking idiot," right? In Armin's voice, because Armin seems to be, in the entire show, seems to be kind of the person who is the series' own critic, and also the critic of the author, the critic of the narrator. It might almost be like, in opposition to what kind of character Armin is, Armin might almost be the kind of inner critic of Isayama, who's criticizing the fact that Isayama has such a negative worldview, and has built in such a defeatist attitude, and has made several narrative inconsistencies within that story, and kind of logical character fallacies where things had to be interpreted in a very certain way and taken to the extreme for it to actually work out in the final story. And Armin is like, that's kind of a little bit bullshit, isn't it? Right? You're kind of being stupid here, Eren. This is kind of a stupid thing, and there could have been another way. And in being a critic of all of that negativity, of all of that bad things that are happening, and all of those unfortunate twists that we see in the story, he's also the positive pole of the entire story, being the one who always advocates for pacifism, always advocates for talking before fighting, always advocates for hope before desperation, and free will before determination. Very interestingly, I think Armin is one of the most free people in the entire story, as opposed to Eren, who, paradoxically, being so focused on his freedom, is one of the least free people in the story. And at the same time, it makes perfect sense, because if you're always so focused on one thing, there must be a reason for that, right? And maybe it is because deep down he feels he is one of the least free people out there. Not just because of all the wrongs he has experienced through the world that has been done to him, but also through his own making, and him blaming this on the world, or blaming it in certain circumstances, might in many situations be an externalization, even if there's even if there is often more than just a grain of truth in there, but just a heap of truth. But I don't think it's all there is to it, and it's the entire picture. But yeah, this is basically what we have to think about. I think a lot of you, especially the anime onlys, will think about this long and hard for weeks and months to come. I know we manga readers had years to not years, but months to dwell on this, almost an entire year, and we did have years to dwell on everything that's going on in Attack on Titan. An incredible work of art that's lasted for an entire decade, and that has come to, in my opinion, proper ends. Even if not everything is perfect about it, no end is perfect. No ending of any story is perfect. Yeah. That's about all I had to say. it's gonna be a hell to edit the reaction portion of the video. I hope I can kind of get it through YouTube. I don't want to edit it too much. I'm probably gonna just edit out the dead spaces. If you did like my discussions of this series, I do have a reaction to Frieren going on at the moment that's slowly catching up to the actual release schedule. I do have a reaction to Made in Abyss going on that is very, very interesting, where we also discuss all kinds of topics of psychology, humanity, narrative, and animation. And I do surely have a lot of interesting series to come down the line because I want to keep doing this. It would be really cool if you could subscribe to my channel if you wanted to see my future videos, ring the bell for notifications so you won't miss a video. Give me a like if you like this video, and I do have a Patreon. At the moment, I can only recommend getting the $1 tier because the rest of it is not completely set up yet. I do have the early access. Mostly early access is $3, by the way. I have the early access mostly prepared, but it's probably going to take me 1 or 2 weeks to actually be ahead and have the necessary videos actually edited and produced. Because I have them recorded. I'm far enough ahead in the series I'm doing to have all the series recorded, and I could release them once I've edited them, of course. So the only thing that's left is like the editing step, which takes a little bit of time because YouTube editing is I'm trying to normally get those 20 to 25 minute episodes down to more of a like 12 to 17 minutes, with kind of blending in and out the actual picture of the anime, because obviously I want to make this fair use. But you can see the picture in picture. I do that every time. But yeah, early access is very close to being completed and being ready. But I'm only going to start early access once somebody actually subscribes to that tier and wants the early access. It would be foolish to do that beforehand. Other than that, yeah. I have higher tiers. It's mostly voting stuff for when I get to do my next series. So you probably should only subscribe if you really, really want to support me, or if you or subscribe in like 3 or 4 months, not 3 or 4 months, but more like 2 or 3 months when we're getting to the next series. I'm gonna try having to decide what I'm gonna watch next. I have seen a lot of interesting shows already, but there's a lot of classics and other stuff I missed, like Monster, Sword of the Stranger, Girls Last Tour, and a bunch of other shit that I definitely want to watch. So there's always something to look forward to. Other than that, I do hope you really, really enjoyed this discussion. I think I said that like 3 times or something, but I hope you're not annoyed by that. It's always kind of hard for me to end these videos. I'll see you guys next time. Hope you tune in.